2 years ago, my husband and I decided that we were going to pack up everything that we own and move from Kansas to Florida to live with my parents. My parents were divorced for 10 years and they were getting back together. And at the time, my husband and I had been separated and we were reconciling our relationship. So on paper, it made perfect sense. We have kids, we'd have support, we get to save money, and we get to start over. Did not realize is that moving back in with my parents at 35, it would teach me more about myself than I ever expected. What is the deal, you guys? It is your girl Asia, and I am back with another video. Welcome to Asia Unscripted. If you are new here, I am a married mother of five, and I talk about my life experiences, my childhood trauma, um, my take on the things that have happened to me in life, and just how I'm maneuvering and making sense of it all. So, like I stated, my husband and I moved back in with my parents after being separated for a year. At the time, I was living in California, he was still in Kansas. And so, us coming back together, what was important for us was being able to hear each other out and figure out moving forward how could we both benefit and how our kids can benefit from us coming together. And so, one of the I don't want to say conditions, but one of the things that I was nervous about with going back to Kansas was at the time I was a stay at home mom, and I did not like that, if I could be completely honest. I did not like being at home and not having an outlet. I definitely needed an outlet at that time. And so that was something that we considered coming back together. I came up with the idea because at the time I was living with my mom. She had expressed to me that her and my dad were talking about getting back together. And so naturally, you think, well, great, that's cool. You know, my kids will be able to be with their grandparents and experience that because that was something that I didn't get to experience growing up. With that being said, we decided to move to Florida. And now looking back, what I did not consider was that I had expectations. I know that's weird to think, well, how did you get into something and you didn't expect anything? Of course, you expected something, and I did. And I did not, I guess I didn't put that at the forefront. My kids get to have a relationship with my parents, we get the support. I'm in a new place. I get to find a job and really get into the social service like I had wanted to. So at the time, I was in case management. So this is going to be perfect. Where we're staying at now, it's way bigger city than where we came from. And so there is a lot more opportunities out there. I did not realize that I wanted something from that. I did not take the time to figure out what it was that I wanted. I just had those expectations and went into it thinking that that was what I was going to get. Now, when I say expectations, I don't want anybody to say, well, how could you not have expectations? I believe that we get into certain situations and we don't have a careful consideration of what we are given. We have to take our emotions out of it and deal with the situation from reality. And what I mean is, you cannot get an orange from an apple tree, it doesn't work, and vice versa. So I wish that I would have taken account the fact that my parents were getting back together and had not been together physically for 10 years. I didn't consider bringing my family and what I just was separated from my husband and bringing all of that into this environment. I did not expect my feelings to be so involved. I think it took me by surprise how triggered I was by certain things that would happen and how things were handled and the lack of communication from everybody. My husband came into this and he suggested that we all sit down as adults and have a conversation about what was to be expected. And I think that was so wise. But at the time, I believe my parents and I looked at the situation like, well, it's family. What could you expect out of this situation? we family, we're going to be here, we're going to support each other. And that was far from the truth. And I don't mean it in a mean way. I mean that everybody at that point had been through so much that we did not take into account that once we put all of that in one environment, how much of a strain it was going to take, how much growth, how much maturity it was going to take to really create an environment that was conducive to everybody's growth. I came down here with the expectation that it was going to be a big, happy family. The distance that we had, with my family living in Kansas, my mom living in California, my dad living in Florida, it appeared that I was healed. It appeared that I had been healing from certain things that had happened to me that I had carried. But it wasn't until I got into this environment and got into this situation and was back in relation with close proximity to my parents that I realized that, wow, a lot of that stuff I had not dealt with. So, expectations aren't wrong. I believe that we need to consider people's lifestyles, the beliefs, people's habits, and those need to be something that if we have to write it down on paper and really like the pros and cons of this thing, then that's something that people need to start breaking down, because I don't think that a lot of people even talk about moving back in with the parents and how much of a stress it could be. My husband and I weren't in the best place. And so if we had not had that year apart, I think that kind of set us up a little bit for us to be able to handle the amount of stress we were going to be in this new situation, considering the fact that we have kids. Financially, we're trying to stabilize with moving from different states and different resources needing to be had and what direction we were going to go in. It was a lot. Um, and so, into my next point is the reality. And I wrote down something, and it says, I realized that a lot of times our reality isn't based in careful consideration, thought out expectations, and then and how those can be met. And what I mean by that is we need to base everything off of what we are getting here and now. I hear a whole bunch of the potential and faith, and I have faith that it's going to work out. And I don't think that is wrong. I do believe there is a level of faith that you need to have, but I also believe that we need to be discerning in certain situations. This situation was driven out of the reality that I did not want to be in Kansas. And I had to sit with that. I did not want to be in Kansas. I did not want to be a stay at home anymore. I wanted my own income. And so those things is what drove me to push to move out here. That was some big girl stuff right there, because I had to sit with that. Do you know how many nights I cried with, like, wow, you're kind of selfish a little bit? And I know I might get people to say, well, that's not wrong to be selfish. And I don't know where I stand with that, if I can be honest. Like, I feel at times that there needs to be a selfishness in taking care of yourself. I see it in that way. Like, hey, I need to stop neglecting myself and being selfish when it comes to my self care. But I also think that because I'm a married woman, everybody needed to be included. And if I'm honest, they weren't. They just weren't included. I understood what my husband was giving up, because at that time he's married to me. We have 5 kids. He has his business established. He's giving up a lot. But I looked at it like, oh, well, we give up that to get more. And that wasn't the case. That was not the case. That wasn't the case. I had to sit with that. I had to sit with that reality that time does not heal. Like, there's the saying, time heals all. No, it doesn't. Like, I don't know what and the concept around that, I need to kind of break that down a little bit, because time doesn't do nothing. Being in these environments with these stressors, with these people, that's what's going to really prove if you've grown or not. That's really going to bring up and kick up a lot of dust for us to see, oh, certain people haven't changed, or you still feel a certain type of way about that. And that's exactly what this thing did. It bust the whole bag wide open. And I'm sitting there like confused, because I really thought that I was a little further than I was. And I just wasn't. That's the reality of it. Lifestyles. I grew up in an environment where there was a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming. And as a parent, I took that into my parenting, yelling and screaming and doing all these things to get my point across. And I had a situation where my dad was reprimanding one of the kids, and I had not realized how triggering it was to me. I sat with it, because I'm like, whoa, what is this feeling that I'm feeling? Why am I feeling like this? Because I'm yelling and screaming at my kids. And at that time, it had not registered that, yeah, out of habit, out of this is how you grew up. And so, of course, if you're not conscious of it, which I wasn't, you're going to do those things. But when you see other people doing it and it kicks up those old feelings, then you start realizing there is something wrong with the way that you're approaching parenting. And so that's another reality that I got to see living here with my parents, was our parenting styles. I had to change the way I parented, because if I continue to parent in this way, a couple years from now, my kids are going to be on YouTube talking about their experience living with me. That's just the reality of it. Like, I really had to think about it like that. A lot of the stuff that I had adopted from growing up, the best approaches. And so I was like, okay, hold on, this is different. I had always taken the approach of more of a talking with my kids. I wasn't someone who was big on discipline as far as getting the belt and popping kids and doing all that type of stuff. That just wasn't me. That wasn't something I felt was very effective. I don't feel like it's very effective. I know what it did to me. I know what it did in me, what it created in me. And I just was like, Lord, I know that there is a way that I can approach this parenting without doing it that way. And so help me figure out what that looks like. And my approach is more so getting down on their level, eye to eye, and talking things through and really bringing logic to the forefront. Like, we're emotional. Let's breathe, let's calm ourselves down, and let's approach it from a more logical point of view. I need to parent different. I just have to, and I appreciate that, because I thought I had it all together. I'm the parent of the year. No, but for real, I yeah, that was a sting. To, I guess, wrap all of this up, my reflection over the last 2 years has been forgiveness. And I love this verse in the Bible, and it's Matthew 18, and it's Peter talking to the Lord, and he comes to him and he asks, well, how many times, and I'm paraphrasing, how many times should I forgive? And he said 7. And the Lord answered, and no, he was like 77. And I take away that forgiveness is so important. This situation highlighted the fact that I had not truly forgiven. And it wasn't until I get in this situation and all of these little ins and outs are happening, and all of the things that I expected to happen didn't happen, that I had an issue with forgiving. I had an issue with pride. I expected something. The little girl in me expected a big, happy family. I expect my parents to come through being the grandparents I expected them to be, because I didn't get that. And that was not a good posture. That was not a good place to base my move from Kansas to Florida. It just wasn't. I needed to be in the here and the now, taking the one plus the one and equaling it out to two and making it make sense, because it just didn't make sense. It wasn't making sense. The math wasn't mathing. And to be fair, my parents had been divorced for 10 years. There was so much that needed to get impacted in that, to where I thought they would be able to facilitate being these grandparents, but also learning to be in a relationship, but also being parents, and also being and also being um, in-laws to my husband. It just was not realistic. It wasn't realistic. We see it in life today, where families are able to come together and help one another, and it is this really ideal um, environment for that to happen. And I do believe it happens in certain families, and I do believe it's real, but that's not the reality that a lot of us have to sit with. So emotional maturity was another one. I didn't realize how emotionally immature I was until I start getting tested in ways that are causing me to act out in front of my kids, in front of my husband. And I'm like, oh, it's embarrassing. This is so uncomfortable. I don't want to feel like this anymore. So what do I have to do? I need to reflect on, why is this making me feel this way? Why do you feel the need to act out and to say those things? Because something deep rooted in me was still struggling with the fact that I'm here, I'm not getting what I expected to get. The reality is, this crap sucks. And what do I do about it? So it's almost like I'm throwing a tantrum, I'm acting out. And I had too many times, about a good 3, 4 times that happened within the last 2 years, where I'm like, you know what? I've come too far. Now I pride myself on, A, we not going back. Let's move forward. And so, what do you need to do in this moment to get you right? Because they are going to do what they're going to do. This situation is going to be this situation. How do you show up, and how do you be an example? And so that was another reflection I had to really take in, and was like, okay, hold on. Yeah, I need to grow up. And I don't just, it's not just growing up, it's like the maturity that you have to handle these situations. If something bigger was to happen, you're not going to handle it well, because look at this little bit of situation right here. Get it together. I had never really understood boundaries, if I can be honest. We see people give and give and give. We see people give until they can't give anymore. And people wear it as a badge of pride. And that's exhausting. Boundaries are necessary. Boundaries are absolutely necessary in these type of situations, in any situation. Whether you're at work, boundaries between your husband, boundaries between your wife, boundaries between your kids. What does that look like? For that look like, I need to speak up. I need to say the things that are hard to say, but they need to be said. This is where I draw the line. This is what I'm not going to accept. This is where I have to pray for you. I'm talking to my godmom, and I'm explaining the situation to her, and she was like, Asia, you're really going to have to start putting that wall up, and saying that you're going to pray for that person or that situation. You're going to have to stop taking in and taking in and taking in and taking on these problems when you have your own situation that you need to get right. And that was real. That was something that I had not done. I never did it. I'm always hearing people and them venting and them coming to me, and I'm being the ones that's solution based and trying to provide a solution. And I had to stop doing that, because my stuff is crumbling in the background. Like, it's not doing good right now. And so you got to stop taking on all of these things. You need to put that boundary up respectfully and say, hey, I can pray for you. This situation would have broke my husband and I a couple years ago. Absolutely. We would have been messed up. I realize in these situations how important it is for you and your spouse to have each other's back, and not it as if you against me or them against us. We need to have each other's back, and we need to be in alignment with one another so that moving forward, we're able to. And this is one thing that my husband said, there needs to be a posture. I'm sorry, there needs to be a posture in us that we can be in this environment that points people to Christ. I didn't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear it. I gotta be who, what, when, and why, where, what, for what? That ate at me. I did not want to hear that. I want to be who I want to be when I want to be it and why I gotta be that way. That's how I wanted to be. And so I realized that if I didn't get that together, me and him were going to constantly be butting heads. And so, Asia, you need to die. Your flesh needs to absolutely die so that you can be the example in this situation that God has called you to. Because this situation isn't just what you thought it was going to be. This situation is to point people back to Jesus Christ. This is exactly what that is for. You and your husband got to get right. You feel me? And everybody else in here is going to be affected if you guys who claim to know Christ, who claim to be Christians, who have claimed to follow Jesus Christ, aren't aligned with what you said you believe in. You're a hypocrite. Like, mind blown. I was like, oh gosh. They say, oh, it's being a no, girl, this dying to your flesh and having to constantly be broken down, down to the nitty gritty. Mm-mm. It's hard. There's times that I went in my car and I drove for an hour and cried because I'm like, Lord, now you making me soft for real. Like, I'm ready to go up on people. I'm ready to get it in. You already know I grew up in this. This is nothing to show my behind. This it's nothing. I'd rather do that than do this. That's exactly where I was at. I had to be honest with him. But he showed me time and time again that where I'm trying to take you, you can't take that with you. So what do you want? You want what you want, but you don't want to do what you need to do to get it. I'm not going to give it to you until you give me absolutely what I want, because that is what's needed in this world. That is what's going to mend these situations, mend these broken relationships. It says in the word to seek peace anytime you can, to seek peace. And so I had to, whoo, man, it was tough. It has been tough. It has been tough, but within the last couple of months, it has been eye opening because I know that this situation has grown my character more than anything has. What looked like a setback was actually a setup. Yeah, it was a setup. It was a setup for the growth that was necessary to produce this YouTube channel. So in that, I'm thankful because now I get to share my experience on my YouTube channel and in these videos and being able to unpack this stuff because it is real. People are going through stuff. People are appearing, they have this outward appearance like they have it all together and they have all the answers and they're dying in the inside. And I did not want that to be me. And so I needed this. I needed this. This produced this. And so if I can give you guys anything, would be that gold is refined in the fire. You have to be refined in that fire. There is this thing that you're avoiding. There's this thing that you have, and it is bigger than you. And you have to come to a place where you humble yourself. And it's times that I've done it over and over again. And like, this situation is too much for me. This situation is too big for me. And I don't have the way out. I don't know how to approach it. I don't even want to approach it the right way. I don't want to do the right thing. But I need you to step in, and I trust you more than I trust how I feel right now. I trust you more than how I am feeling, because how I'm feeling, I cannot trust it. It's going to lead me down a path that I don't want to go down. And so I need to relinquish this struggle that I have with this thing, this control issue that I have with this thing. This has been the most refining 2 years that I've had ever, because this taught me that he corrects those who he loves. He corrects those who he loves. And I need to be appreciative of the correction, because he don't want me to go out like that. He doesn't. But yeah, guys. This has been another episode of Asia Unscripted.